Hi, this is Zubair and you are watching Learn English with Zubair UOP. In this video, we are going to discuss the contribution of Queen Elizabeth to the country of England. Queen Elizabeth was the last of the Tudor dynasty. She was the daughter of King Henry VIII, the sister of Queen Mary. Queen Elizabeth replaced Queen Mary on her death in 1558, November 1558. Queen Elizabeth was coronated in January 1559 and she ruled till 1603. During this long time period, Queen Elizabeth made several contributions. She turned out to be one of the most successful, prosperous, popular ruler that English ever had. She is the one who is credited for having brought about Renaissance in England. If Renaissance means knowledge, if Renaissance means humanism, if Renaissance means trade, if Renaissance means exploration, if Renaissance means attention to humanity, if Renaissance means a liberal secular state, Queen Elizabeth did all this. Her contribution is magnificent, it is stupendous, and we are going to discuss some of them in detail, one after another. The first and the foremost contribution must be religious harmony, religious toleration. Remember, it was the time period in England and it was a time period across Europe when the whole continent was divided along the line of Protestantism and Catholicism. Both these sects were at loggerhead. Peace of Augsburg, signed in 1558, had given a leeway, a freedom to the rulers to choose faith according to their own wishes, desire, given the conditions in the country or keeping the majority of the masses in view. Yet it was problematic. Sometimes a king's leaning would not be tolerated by the opposing sect. That would lead to serious conflicts. Many of the conflicts, in fact, became quite known. They are still commemorated, like the one in France in Bartholomew Fair. In this festival, some 3,000 Protestants were killed in just one event, one incident. These kinds of incidences were common across Europe. Queen Elizabeth, when she appeared on the scene, she had the choice either to carry forward the agenda of her father, go ahead with the Church of England established in 1536 when King Henry VIII dissevered, cut off his relationship with the papacy, with the Church of Rome. Or she could have continued with the policies of Queen Mary that she began in 1553, killed some 3,000 Protestants, came to be known as Bloody Mary by 1558. Queen Elizabeth did not opt for either side. She helped both these sects to function, to go along arms in arms, hands in hands, and function peacefully. She allowed Catholic with their remains, with their mass processions, with their places of worships, with their important memorials. She at the same time allowed Protestant nobles, Protestant priests as they were functioning across England. This was such a strong message to people. This was in fact a dent to people who somehow wanted to continue with these conflicts. She helped many of the Protestants who were sent in exile during Queen Elizabeth to come back. So through her persona, through her personality and her choice of mind and heart that she wanted a peaceful England, she was able to inculcate the lesson that Queen Elizabeth did not side with any, or rather she would continue with her faith, with her belief, the way she saw Christianity, that it was just one Jesus, one Christ, all else mere trifle. She just did not send this message through her persona or through her choice not to side with either. She ensured that in legislation, two of the acts that she passed from Parliament went milestone. The first one was Act of Uniformity. She wanted to ensure that the differences in the interpretation and perspective were mere individual. They were not the differences in Bible or the way Jesus Christ had instilled the religion among people. Another act that she passed from Parliament was the Act of Conformity. Earlier, religion was used as a tool to oppress, to persecute people. On such small acts, for example, missing the Sunday prayers, people were flogged, punished. These punishments on the basis of trifle issues were abolished. These punishments were cancelled, and it was such a big relief. And it was also a very liberal, secular act. Religion, at the end of the day, is a private, personal matter. Offering worship is individual's choice, and it should not be forced. Queen Elizabeth knew this, and being a liberal, being a person with a secular notion of life, she knew this well, and she tried to ensure this across country. So passing this Act of Conformity, Act of Uniformity went a long way in bringing about religious harmony, religious peace. And that is how she was successful. In just a matter of 2 to 3 years, she was able to change England in comparison to France, in comparison to Spain and other countries across Europe. Another big contribution of Queen Elizabeth is to economy. Queen Elizabeth received economy in shambles. It was a tattered, bearish economy. Several years of drought, low rain, had negatively impacted the agriculture output. The currency had gone debased. People had siphoned off gold currency from the market and allowed just the debased copper currency to run in the market. Foreign countries were reluctant to do business with England because it could not pay they could not pay for the trade. This was a very alarming situation for England. What Queen Elizabeth did was she gathered all the debased currency from the market, picked it up, dissolved it, and replaced it with a new currency of gold and placed a high value on it. This revived the economy. Along with that, she also paid attention to trade with other countries. And one such step was building those nimble, maneuverable ships. She not only built those ships, she helped the people living on the sea to be trained to run those ships. This was such an important act. It not only facilitated exporting fish to the markets across Europe, it helped bring objects, goods, items of necessity to England with the help of these ships. These ships straight away take us to another important contribution, which is addition to the military might. With the help of the ships that Queen Elizabeth built, the England's military might also grew big. England, which has been facing threats from France and even bigger threat from Spain, King Philip I, who was husband to Queen Mary, who tried to marry Queen Elizabeth, but she refused and was really incensed. He was made angry by the refusal. And another, he had a religious ambition also. He wanted to switch back England to Catholicism. So he would not tolerate Queen Elizabeth's neutrality. He was all the time building this massive armada, fleet of ships, in order to attack England. So in 1588, when he came with his biggest armada, he confronted Queen Elizabeth's military might. Queen Elizabeth stood victorious. So all these years when Queen Elizabeth has been working to grow trade with the help of those ships that she built on the sea and trained those seamen on the beach, on the shores, it helped England grow in its military might also, and finally got England to victory in one of the biggest wars and destroyed, decimated Spanish Armada. Another big contribution of Queen Elizabeth is the administrative control. It is always very harsh for a woman to rule, and particularly in those times when there would not be many women is on the administrative position, and in a time in a society which was quite rugged, medieval, it was really hard for women to rule. But Queen Elizabeth was diplomatic. She was really wise. She established her control through several tools. She had her persona. She had the ability to control people through her language, through her behavior. She knew how to address people, and she also knew how to deal people. She had this hand on the pulse of the people. She knew for which very reason somebody was advancing. Some men tried to seduce her, others would flirt with her, some came with serious reasoning, and she dealt everyone according. Like one writer says, even jokers are people who would advance just to have some playful conversation with her. Queen Elizabeth reciprocated in the same kind of language. She did not hurt. With young, she would be young. With old, she would be old. With children, she would be children. So she became this amazing personality. And this was quite important for a ruler to know her people. So she knew it. She allowed many of her relatives to function on different administrative positions, and it was so helpful to her. These people of knowledge, these people of wisdom helped Queen Elizabeth prolong her rulership successfully. So this is the kind of personality that she had. And one more thing, she did not marry just because of just to be able to exercise her administrative control successfully. Many men advanced, but she did not marry. She knew that once she has married, she would be of secondary importance, and the man who marries her would be exercising his full control. So this was very important in a sense that Queen Elizabeth knew how to treat people, and secondly, she knew the person whom she marries would kind of be exercising his might and control. Queen Elizabeth's last and biggest contribution that we need to discuss here is her contribution to art and literature. We have seen that during the Renaissance, patronization was such an important phenomenon which helped England revive art and literature. Queen Elizabeth did the same thing to England. She herself patronized art and literature. She took interest in it. She would attend stage performances. She would go out among children who would sing hosannas, who would sing praise songs for her, and she would be pleased by these acts. Many of the scholars, many of the intellectuals like Shakespeare, Edmund Spencer, Philip Sidney, etc. would throng her court. It was during her time that 20 theatres were built along London. She allowed feudal lords, nobles to build theatres across Europe. So we see that it is during her time period that some of the greatest writers, poets, singers emerged. And some of the biggest contribution to English literature was made during her time. Many of the great artists, like we just mentioned, William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, Sir Walter Raleigh, Francis Bacon, etc. appeared just because the atmosphere was conducive. They were rewarded for their geniusness. They were rewarded for their creativity. These writers would be urged to produce, to create, to please their patrons in the due course of time. So these kinds of measures that Queen Elizabeth took facilitated England to run along the rest of the countries in Europe, England has been slightly behind other countries like France, Spain, Italy, particularly in what we call Renaissance. But when Queen Elizabeth appears, she took those important steps. England not just was able to move in faster pace, it went ahead with many of the countries along Europe, and it turned out to be the golden age of English literature and art as well. Thank you very much. If you like the video, do like and forward, share it with your friends in order to help as many people as possible. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.